Hey y'all, Sarah Beth. It is a scorcher out. I've been out here in the garden since about probably 8:30 this morning, and almost tripped over the fence. It's nearing about probably 11:30 right now. I can see I've got sunburn, but I had a bunch of store-bought potatoes that actually sprouted eyes. I have two types. I have a russet type, and I have like a little fingerling potato type, red and yellow potatoes. So I was gonna just have some fun and plant these back in the ground where I had my Yukon Gold potatoes, because those ones that I harvested in the previous video, they have not sprouted eyes yet. So that will be another video on how to get your potatoes to sprout eyes, how to make seed potatoes, how to store potatoes, etc. But I have these store-bought potato ones, so I figured why not have some fun, get a few extra potatoes out of a bunch of potatoes that are just hanging around the house, and yeah, get them planted in the ground. This morning I've been working on getting a kiddie pool raised bed in, so that's going to be fun. I've been preparing the soil for it and everything. I've been just making a pile of my composted soil, just really good topsoil and composted soil that's going to go into it, and just making an area for it here in the garden. And actually, I'm so grateful. I happened to acquire 3 tomato plants yesterday from a friend from church, and they already have fruit on them. They're called Creole tomatoes, and apparently they're supposed to be really great for growing in climates that are really wet, humid, and hot, and have extreme temperatures. They, I guess, were originated in Louisiana, so we'll see how they do. They look like they're doing really good, so I'm really excited to get those in the ground. Unfortunately, I think I'm probably gonna lose all of those tomatoes over there on the other side where that little tomato patch is. I don't know if you see the tomatoes back here are doing pretty good. That bean plant is kind of crazy back there, and some of them are already throwing flowers on my tomato plant. So the ones over here are doing good. I did have to rip out one over here on the end. It was having similar issues like the tomatoes on the other side, so I can't just purely blame it on the compost and herbicide poisoning, because these tomatoes over here had no special treatment. They were not put in compost. They were literally put straight in the ground, really good topsoil, and yeah, and mulch, and that was it. So we'll see how these 2 different varieties do. I'm just kind of trying to figure out which varieties are going to grow best here in my area. So here are my spuds that have eyes that have started throwing on them. So I'm going to get these planted in this area. I don't know if you remember, this is where I have my Yukon Golds. And literally what I did is I just pulled out all of that nasty blight top of the leaves and stems of the potato, and I put them in my burn pile, and then I just mulched over this whole entire area. And what I've decided this time to do is I'm actually going to do a Ruth Stout method, where I'm just literally going to put these potatoes directly on top of this mulch with the eyes up, and I'm going to take this old mulch and literally just layer it all over the top of the potatoes. No digging, nothing required like that. About probably 6 to 12 inches of this mulch just on top of these potatoes. So here's the potatoes with the eyes. Y'all can see several of them have really good eyes going, and several of them have multiple eyes. I'm not going to go on and chip these because I'm lazy and I don't feel like it. I don't feel like waiting for them to scab and stuff like that. I'm just going to throw these in the ground and see what they do, but we'll see here. So I don't know, no rhyme or reason to this, just putting them in. Just laying them here with the eyes up. So really, I didn't put much thought into this. I literally just laid them down, russets, some fingerlings, russets, fingerlings, and then whatever I had left. And I have a tiny little space here on the end. I don't know, maybe if my potatoes sprout from the ones that I harvested in the last video, I'll put them here. I don't know, because it's 80 days to maturation, and in my growing season here in zone 7A in Tennessee, we have a fairly decent long growing season. Our first frost is about around October 15th, and that's on a really early year. So we have a really good growing season here, so these should be able to make it through no problem. They can handle a light frost anyways. So now I'm just going to cover all this up with mulch. And I'm certainly gonna make sure to put a glove on because this is like really old mulch. Alright guys. Trying to do things with one hand in the camera. This is really old mulch. I got it from my neighbor's barn. This 100-year-old tobacco barn that I was telling y'all about, and I've been in the middle of tearing that down and hauling wood over here so I can start to get my raised beds going. So I'm really excited about that. All right, all done. So once this starts to break down, I might have to add another layer of mulch, and that's okay. So the goal is to keep the potatoes covered from the sun because that's how it's going to make its leaves and stems and stuff like that, and its tubers. I'm starting to learn potatoes are kind of pretty foolproof. As long as you keep them out of sun, they'll grow. I've heard of people putting them straight on the grass before and just piling mulch all on top of them to establish yourself a garden. Definitely interested in trying that next year to see how that works in several areas of the garden that I want to really work the soil. I'm just going to literally water this once, and I'm probably not going to water this at all until I need to pick them here probably in October. Just a little bit so the mulch stays on. I know better now. Last time I had trouble with blight, y'all know from another video that I posted. And so last week it rained all week, and now it's been dry again the past several days. So the weather's kind of sporadic here, and I think that's what causes a lot of issues. So I think it's probably best to minimally water these potatoes, just so I don't make it worse here. Gosh, is it so hot out, guys. I'm gonna sit here for a second and just in the shade of this rose of Sharon that I have here over this potato patch. And then I'll show you really quick kind of what I'm doing with the raised bed project, kind of where I'm at with that, what materials I have going on, and kind of my ideas on that, and a few other things. But I'll talk about really quick what I've learned about my growing season in zone 7A and the climate and the temperature here, and just kind of about the plants that I'm growing and the varieties I'm growing. I can't say for your area, but I can just say for my area and for my experience what I've noticed with the plants that I'm growing here in my garden. So I've noticed that the squash and primarily the tomatoes, they really don't like really wet soil and extreme temperatures. So like with the squash, I've noticed like too much water kind of makes the flowers and like fruits that I've set on them kind of start to get moldy, and a lot of them had been dying back and stuff like that. So that I was struggling with that for a while last week until we kind of had this dry spell. So next time I plant squash, I definitely am not going to deep mulch my plants. I tend to deep mulch a lot of my plants, and so I don't really think that this method works well with the squash, especially because it also encourages and draws in squash bugs and squash beetles and stuff like that, which I've been noticing I had been fighting with for the past like 2 weeks now with putting like diatomaceous earth and neem oil on my squash plants, and it looks like I might have gotten ahead of it right now. I'm not sure, but I think that's something gardeners often struggle with. Another thing that I've noticed with the tomatoes, they don't like the extreme temperatures, and they don't like the afternoon sun here on the west side of the house. They seem to like better the southwest side over here, and they really primarily enjoy like the morning sun, at least 6 hours of it. So I'm definitely not going to be planting tomatoes over there on the side of the house over there where it only gets afternoon sun from like 1 o'clock and on, because it just scorches the plants, it kills the plants, it wilts the plants, and they are not doing well at all. And I also noticed with the tomatoes, they don't like to be overwatered and they don't like to be too dry. So it seems to be the best thing to do is just to literally plant them straight into the ground with the clay soil that we have here, and just mulch them and like water them every 2 to 3 days, as long as there's not crazy rain. If there's crazy rain, obviously I'm not going to water them at all, and that has seemed to do the trick. And another thing I've noticed with my bean plants is to not directly plant them into aged manure because apparently they don't need that much nitrogen. Just wait till y'all see this bean plant. It's just absolutely crazy. Look at that bean plant. That's literally one heirloom yellow wax bean. And it's starting to impede on the cucumbers and the other bean that I had to move out of there. I don't know if y'all remembered, onto the other side in the bed, and now it's impeding on that on the other side too. So I'm gonna have to move the bean plant. So one thing I've learned is to not plant beans directly into manure that has been aged, and honestly it probably doesn't need much amendment at all, the beans, because I know they're nitrogen fixing. So no more compost for beans. Another thing that I've noticed is that if it's too hot, the tomatoes flowers drop. They just can't keep the flowers on. And I've also known with the crazy rain that we get here, especially in the spring, early spring, April and May, a lot of times I've noticed that the fruits and flowers, they haven't been fully pollinated by the bees, because when it rains like this all the time, the bees are not out all the time. You know, they're only kind of coming out when it stops raining. And so I've noticed that a lot of my fruits on my squash plants and my watermelon haven't been fully pollinated. So there's actually like 3 stamens on a flower, and so only maybe 1 has been being pollinated. So I only have fruit on there, you know, 1 watermelon that's like that big, and then I have a couple of squashes that are really small that have just seemed to stop growing, and they're probably not going to grow anymore. And I have several huge ones on there too, and same with the watermelons. I have several bigger ones that are like continuously growing, but I have noticed that it seems that when it rains a lot, the bees cannot fully pollinate the flowers, so the fruits can get really large. So this is what I got going on with the kiddie pool thing. This was soil that I have been working for several years now, kind of pulled in from here, because a lot of times, see this area right here that I actually worked this morning, I throw all my compost and scrap materials and stuff like that in there from the kitchen, and horse manure and just clippings and stuff like that, and I drug it all out from last year here. So this is the remains from last year, and this will be for next year. But I'm going to put this in the kiddie pool. I'm going to drill holes in it and put this in the kiddie pool. I haven't decided if I'm going to make a strawberry patch out of it or something else, but that's what I'm working on right now. I just wanted to show you guys my sunflowers. Look, it's almost coming out. It's so flower. This is the evening sunflower bloom. It's going to be like a really pretty yellow and orangey color, and I really am enjoying these sunflowers this year. I don't know if you can see, they have so many different flowers that are setting on them on just one sunflower plant. There's 3 right there, there's 4 right there, there's just tons of them. There's like 7 on this one plant that are going to be coming out. And this guy's littler, but they're just really beautiful, and I'm really happy with this variety of sunflower that I planted. So guys, look at this bean plant. It's just crazy. I'm finally excited because I finally have some female flowers that are setting on it. I don't know if y'all can see right here, that's a female flower. So it's taken forever, and so I haven't had any beans because obviously it had too much nitrogen. But I don't know if y'all remember this plant bean that I planted, replanted, transplanted this provider from in here with this. It's already being shaded out by this plant, so I'm gonna have to move that again, which is crazy. And I've got several cucumbers. I probably have another batch of cucumbers here ready to be picked again. Toby will be really happy about that. I've got 3 right here almost ready to be picked, and it doesn't want to focus. I don't know if y'all can see that. There's 3, 1, and then 2 and 3, and several on the other one. And then here are those tomatoes I was telling you that I acquired from a friend. These are these Creole tomatoes. They already have several really pretty fruits on them, and it's interesting because they almost look like they're blushing. I don't know if y'all can see that. I don't know what the tomatoes look like. I think they're heirloom, but they look just beautiful. They're in pretty good shape despite this crazy temperature. Here's some more fruits on them, and you can see they're setting flowers. This one's a little smaller. It had a couple flowers on them yesterday, but it has dropped them. Here's some flowers right here because it's just been so hot. And these tomatoes over here, they're doing pretty good. I had to dust them with diatomaceous earth because the aphids were getting a hold of them. But this one here, look, it's starting to set flowers, guys. See cute little green. So that's really exciting. Really happy with that. And the basil that I directly sowed in the ground is starting to come up too. And here is the massive spaghetti squash. Y'all can see it's just crawling up there. My family just came back from church. Look at that squash. It's just huge. Those are growing. Here's another one. And this is that one that I was telling y'all that just stopped growing. Look at it. It's so tiny and it's already getting hard. So that's not been fully pollinated. So I've been noticing that issue. There's another one right there. And there's another big one over here. And then I did notice, there's another one there, that this one, it's quite interesting. It's completely different color. So I don't know if that's because it's only been partially pollinated too. But the squash, see, I had to start, I will never ever get a bush variety of squash again. And I really recommend to y'all, do not get a bush variety of squash if your intention is to make them climb up a trellis, because it is very difficult to train them. See, I've got a couple in here coming along finally after much work on trying to save this plant, because honestly I thought it was going to be a goner because it had like mold in here and everything from all those blooms and little fruits that had reseeded and were molding from all the rain. So this seems like it's going to make a comeback. Got some zinnias, and the watermelons are doing really good. So here, you know, I see there's some flowers and I've got some fruit set, and this guy literally was like as big as my fingernail yesterday, so it's like tripled in size. I've got another little guy coming on over there, and I've got one over here, decent sized watermelon right here coming on, and that was literally tiny, like this one was yesterday, so it literally tripled in size almost. And these silver line melons are little seedlings I directly sowed in here, are doing really well too. I've dusted everything with diatomaceous earth just as preventative, because I did notice there was aphids over here too. So I'm just taking a precaution. Another little silver line melon coming up. And here's a watermelon I was telling you guys. Look, it's like full color and everything. It literally just stopped growing here. So issue with not being fully pollinated. And I can't believe it's kind of crazy because I've been harvesting kale out of here because it's super hot here, and normally kale does not grow at all during this time of year. And even though they're really small and I haven't been able to harvest that much, I've still been able to harvest like a good salad's worth of kale every single week, which is super cool. I've just been adding it to my stir fries and stuff like that and my eggs in the morning, and just been harvesting tons of basil out of this bed and from my other basil plant that I need to transplant. So I'm super pleased with that. And so hot, all of my lemon balm has literally went to seed, pretty much primarily. There's tons of flowers, but it's starting to go to seed. And I don't really feel like, honestly, cutting this all back again so it doesn't go to seed. I have so much lemon balm, it's just ridiculous. And the mint is doing just fine, and the comfrey over here is still doing really great. I was thinking about making like a comfrey tea for the plants, you know, to give back some nutrients to some of the plants in the garden. So I'll see about that. I'm gonna go take a walk to the raspberry bush right now. It wasn't doing well like last month, and now it's doing great. The raspberry trees that I planted from the little rootstocks, it's just growing like crazy now all of a sudden, and I feel like it's since I mulched it. Look at that. Look at that raspberry. It's just literally like tripled in size in a matter of a week, and it's thrown on some flower blooms, which is super cool. So hopefully I'll be able to harvest some red raspberries here before we get our first frost. So this is what I've got going on with the garden, with the project with the raised beds right now. Y'all can see I've got a bunch of wood in the back of my Jeep in the trailer, and a bunch of other things like some old fencing that I'm gonna use to kind of put a fence around the garden. But this is literally 100-year-old red oak, and these are 2x4s, and so I'm going to use these to make the raised beds with. Got some rosemary coming along here. It's been doing much better since I put it out in the full sun. Some more zinnias. I'm thinking of putting some peppers in here. I actually directly sowed into cells. Actually, last night, I went over to that wood pile. I'll show you guys what else I picked up. Some Tangerine Dream peppers and some eggplants and some more sunflowers. It's way too hot out to germinate them right now. I've noticed sunflowers don't seem to like to germinate in this heat, so I'm going to start them inside. Same with the eggplants and the peppers. Let's see, I'm going to give them one last shot and hopefully they'll come up, and I'm thinking about planting them over in that area. But here's some more of that red oak, the 2x4s that I actually have unloaded in this pile. And then I picked up some old metal roofing from that tobacco barn. And so my ideal and goal with this is to use this as the raised bed and to take these 2x4s and put one along the top and one along the bottom and use them to make raised beds. So it's definitely going to be a project in the making. It's not going to happen overnight. So slowly just piddling away at a time. And then here's this one that I showed y'all before in one of my videos. I have to make just a raised bed just straight out of these. They're deep enough just to make raised beds the way that they are. So yeah, so this is what I've been doing. This is the projects that I'm working on. Just wanted to show y'all. It's super hot out and I've literally been out here since like 8:30 in the morning. It's almost lunchtime. I have sweat dripping from my arms. I need to take a shower. But yes, thanks for watching, guys, subscribing. Hit the notification bell to get a notification when I post my next video. Subscribe if you like my videos and to see the next video. Comment if you have a question, or you can help me out with my tomato problem. I greatly appreciate it. But till next time, y'all, be blessed. Bye.